G'day there, it's Dave here, Dave Mills with another exciting video. And I want to talk to you about sometimes how possessions seem pretty bad, but actually you've got hidden resources if the king is exposed and is weak. And so sometimes that can be enough to be devastating. And so in this position here, it's a forced draw. There's nothing white can do unless it wants to lose material. And so we can actually see a position where the king is weak on the light squares. So how can you actually expose? And using momentum, we want to connect the pieces. Now we see the explosive energy. The queen is actually also hitting on the rook. There's a battery. And so batteries turn into barrages, and barrages turn into batteries. The rook is the firing piece, bang, and so we want to check the checks. Queen takes h2 doesn't work. You just trade it all off, and you've swapped. you end up swapping a rook for a pawn. It's not nice. So how can you take advantage of this weak king? The fact it's trapped and the light square, it's weak on the light squares. So let's check out rook takes h2, the most forcing acceleration that we could do as a check. So check the checks that could be made. So rook takes h2, and then in this position, rook takes h2. We see that maximum momentum against the king, but the queen recaptures. So what happens now is, what's different is you've actually cleared the line to the king. And so the king is now exposed. You've opened the line, with maximum momentum against h2, and you've also discovered the attack on the rook on d1. And so this is how you're able to force the draw. See, rook takes h2, queen takes h2, and now the obvious thing is to check at f3. Check, diagonal, hitting the king in the corner. Now, there's two ways to go here. The only way is to block. There's no the weakness on the light squares is in part because he's given up the light square bishop, which is bad. And number two, one of the weaknesses is that, the king has nowhere to go. King is in the corner. And so after check, you've got a block. It's the only thing you can do. Now, if you do lift the rook, then you can just play queen takes the rook on d. If you do play rook to g2, blocking the check, then the queen goes to d1 check, takes the rook. It's just there's no way to stop it. So if you block with the queen, then you can actually pull the queen back to h5 check. So you've got a rook at g1, queen at g2, king at h1, and the black queen, her highness, has checked you on h5, and that open h5, and there's nowhere the king can move, so the queen has to play back to h2, and this is alternation now. This is a simple case of alternation, check, 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 and if a mistake is actually made, and the rook gets lifted, you gobble up that rook on d1, check. So this is using alternation, to create perpetual check and to force the draw. And there's nothing that white can do, and it's very unpleasant. And also we just see what weaknesses on one color can do. That's it. That's all it takes, is weaknesses on one color. Weaknesses on, in this case, the light squares. And so in any other situation, white would be pretty happy, but the vulnerable king and the weakness. And the fact is that rook on d1 is semi-protected. It's only defended once. It's semi-loose. So it's also a target. And because of the checks, it's forcing, and white just doesn't have the time to defend. Doesn't have the material and doesn't have the time. So it ends up being, so the line clearing sacrifice, rook takes h2, is brilliant because it exposes the king to a second line of attack, which is the h file, and there's too many weaknesses. There's too many points at which you can check the king, and the king's got nowhere to go. And So using alternation is a way to get perpetual check. Using type 3 alternation is a great way to force a draw and take control over the situation. And notice how after rook takes h2, white has had no choice other than to just keep blocking with the queen, or to give up the rook and d1, which is an unpleasant idea. And not that it can stop the perpetual checks. The perpetual checks are gonna come fast and furious. All right, so there you are. I hope you enjoyed this problem. It's not as much of a marathon as a lot of these videos, and it's been an absolute pleasure. And there's one more where we're going to discuss problem number 20 for today. All right, take care. Bye.